Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. I think we are going to start. I think others will join. And today can make it more interactive because I think what I'll be covering today is a bit crucial about evaluating agent. And I would like to hear your views. Like, how do you handle? Are you building an agent? And when building agents, how do you evaluate? Like, to make sure that the agent is performing well in production and as expected. Maybe you can just unmute and yeah, share like how you do it. Anyone? Welcome, Victor. I know Grace, you are on Matatu. You can't be able to talk. Maybe Jimmy, how do you handle evaluation? Have you done evaluation before? I don't know whether Jimmy. Am I audible? Or can you guys hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, perfect. Victor, do you have you done evaluation before? How do you evaluate your agents, like to make sure that the performance is consistent both locally and on production?
I'm actually still new to this high level sort of use of AI and these APIs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to learn mostly. Uh, but when it comes to LLMs mostly, like when it comes to, let's say, I want to apply the OpenAI API to use it maybe,
Mm-hmm.
let's say for something like analyzing a privacy policy.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do a system prompt and then just draft an entire system prompt of what I expect it to do, a name that I want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
so that basically that works to specify the kind of task that does. I don't know if that is exactly what you're looking for, but that is as far as my knowledge of sort of some degree of evaluation, and also based on the results of what I see after trying to use it.
Okay, and have you tried maybe deploying an agent, then on production, try to change the base model, try to update the system prompt? Have you done such a thing?
Yeah, I've updated the system prompt while it's working,
Mm-hmm.
mostly based on the results that I'm getting. If
Okay.
there's something I need to add,
Uh-huh.
fine tuning essentially.
Okay.
Yeah,
How,
normally works.
how did it affect the end users, or how did it affect the entire? Did the system break, or like that's how was that?
Um, when it comes to users, I haven't deployed any of my, let's say, projects. They're mostly learning projects and things that for hackathons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But once I do that on an application that has multiple users, perhaps I'll understand, or even perhaps I'll understand in the course of the session.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much, Victor. Anyone else? Welcome, Edwin Mwiti. Jimmy, at some point I saw your mic was unmuted. Maybe you can tell us how do you evaluate your agent in production, or how do you handle the evaluation pipeline locally and product in production?
So, hi everyone, am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. So, I haven't so far evaluated an agent,
Mm-hmm.
but I have evaluated an LLM
Mm-hmm.
before fine tuning it and after fine tuning it.
Okay.
So, it was basically a generative AI,
Mm-hmm.
some kind of application
Okay.
that it helped us. It was okay. The application itself, it was like a medical chatbot.
Mhm.
So I was using LangSmith for evaluating and tracking how the LLM was performing on the test. But agents so far I haven't evaluated.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Yeah, I think you have some basic knowledge about the evaluation. That's good. That's good. Uh-huh. Perfect. Grace, for me, I look at the final output and average speed of the answer response time as well. Okay, and maybe I'm curious just to hear how maybe updating the base model and the prompt and maybe some instruction affects the final output or the entire system to the end user. Maybe if you get a chance to where you can tell us or maybe explain more on that, maybe you can just unmute or raise your hand. But thank you for that. Anyone else who has deployed agent or done some evaluation? Last person. Okay. So, mm, so evaluation, just to get started, is a quantitative. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh yeah. Say changing from this to this, there are some changes in quality of the exactly, exactly. That is what I was looking for, Victor. Yeah, and like you get you find that this may affect the entire application, the entire performance of the application and the end users as well. So that's why actually today we are learning about evaluations to make sure that when you are building your agent locally and deploying them on production, you are doing some test or you are evaluating it in a way that to make sure that the performance is consistent both locally and in production, and changing some configuration or the base LLM or the system prompts does not affect the end goal of what you're trying to build. So evaluation is a quantitative way of measuring the performance of an LLM powered application. So quantitative means that you are trying to measure the performance of two systems. Like I have this one system, but give when I give it a different input or when I give it a different system prompt, how does it perform? So that is what where evaluation is all about. And one of the reasons why this is important is because LLMs are deterministic, which means that their behavior is not predictable. Um, you may, if for example, let's say you change a system, the system prompt is one of the, I think, the major configuration that changes the entire thing, because that is what defines the behavior of the application. So you find if you're iterating and maybe you want to give an agent or to give maybe some instruction, if you update the system prompt, you may the application may end up performing completely different. So yeah, another thing is changing the base model. Let's say for example today we have GPT-5, then we have tomorrow we have GPT-6. So how will like updating the changing the base model affect the performance or the output of your application? Will the performance improve, or will it you may at some point you may find that changing from maybe GPT-4 to GPT-5, the system even or the LLM completely ignores the system message. So how do you handle such cases? Evaluation provides a structured way to identify failures, compare changes across different versions of the application. I think I have been saying about that. Then it also helps you to easily iterate on your application more reliably, so that because before deploying, before deploying your app, evaluation makes sure that you run some tests to make sure that you are sure with what you are deploying. So actually today's session is going to be very short because I feel evaluation is a very important topic, and we can't, and it's a very broad topic. We can't handle everything at once, and we need to start from somewhere. And we are going to start from the basics. What are the main components of evaluation? How do you set up an evaluation? What are the different types of evaluation? So evaluation is made up of three main components. One of them being the data set. So the data set, they call it the golden data set. So the data set act as the source of truth of how your system should perform. Let's say, for example, you're building a finance or a health related agent, and you already know that if a user asks about maybe this type of drugs, this should be the response. You get? So that's the data set. Like you already know, like such a query should result to such an output. So a dataset contains a collection of test inputs and reference outputs. Then we have the target function. So the target function, this defines the part or the sorry for that. The target function defines what you're trying to evaluate, and you can evaluate different parts of your system. Let's say, for example, you have an agent, maybe an agentic workflow with different nodes. You may only want to evaluate a single node. That is one. You may only want to evaluate a new prompt, like who has said the thing? I think James or Victor. Yeah, you may want to evaluate like a part of your application that is made up of different nodes, or you may want to evaluate an entire application. It depends on maybe are you adding some new functionalities. Maybe that's where the system prompt has changed, or something or some configuration. So it all depends on what you are trying to evaluate. So the target function targets the part of the application that you want to evaluate. We are going to see. Then we have the evaluators. So the evaluators, the function that calls the input. So let's say, for example, I want to update a certain node, to evaluate a certain node. So the evaluators, you may define different evaluators. Maybe correctness is the answer that is being generated by this node correct, based on let's say I'm the developer, based on my experience on what I want the agent to achieve. That is one. Conciseness is another evaluator, is the answer being generated by, maybe you want a given node to generate a very concise answer. Maybe it should be less than 50 characters or 50 words. Is it doing that consistently? So that is the evaluator. So the evaluators are what scores what you are testing. And there are different types of evaluators, and this is very important for you to note. There are online evaluators and offline evaluators. So what is the difference? So the online evaluators means, let's say, for example, I have an application in production, and maybe users are interacting with the app. If you look at ChatGPT, I think that's how they do evaluation. That's yeah. After the response from the LLM, there is somewhere where you can react, either a thumbs up or if you didn't like the answer. So that's an online evaluator. Like, yes, I like the answer, so that is sent back to maybe the evaluating framework they already have. If I don't like the answer, that is sent back to to their evaluator to show that the user was not satisfied with this kind of response. And sometimes you may, if you are, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, you may ask a query on ChatGPT, then you're given two responses for you to choose which one you prefer. And all that happens after some interactions. Now they are trying to customize the experience to your need. So they give you two options just to understand what kind of, like, so that they are able to give you better experience. They give you two options, then you select which you prefer. So that's an online evaluation. Then you have an offline evaluator. So offline evaluators, this is where you have defined your own data set. Like, it's an offline data set. Maybe after just to give an example, maybe after a client or a user raises an issue that I'm not able to complete this task, you add that to the evaluation data set. Now, when shaping the some new features, you make sure that you are evaluating the new feature or the new app based on the data that has been collected. So that's the difference. The online evaluators, you get the real-time feedback, but for the offline evaluators, you have some predefined input and output based on how you want your application to respond to users, or what the application should achieve. Mm, so this is an image just to summarize the entire thing, the data set, the application. This should be, think of the application here as the target function. Actually, it is the target function. Then we have the evaluators. Then we have experiments. So you can see from this, the data set, we have examples. And I think you can't, like, to build a good evaluator, you can't have one example. So you have multiple examples. So, and an example contains an input and a reference output. Then we have the application. This is the target function, the part of your application that you're targeting to test. And it can be a single node, it can be a new prompt, it can be part of the application, or it can be the end-to-end, like the entire application. Then we have the evaluator. So as I had said, like, you can have multiple evaluators. You can have an evaluator to evaluate the correctness of your app, the conciseness, the ground truth, or something like, you can have so many kind of evaluators to evaluate your application based on your use case. Then we have the results. So we are going to have multiple results if we have multiple inputs. So the target function receives an input from our dataset. So we are going to see that. Then after the application runs on the given inputs, it returns the input and the output. Then after getting the input and the output, we pass the input output from the target function, and the reference output from our data set. You can see this example is coming to this. So that should be the reference output to the evaluator, so that now the evaluator is able to evaluate what we are trying to measure, then give a score, then you get the result. So we are going to refer to this image as we move on. So any question up to that point? Anyone with a query on anyone who maybe you have not gotten something you'd like me to explain more, or yeah, just raise your hand. If you are all good, maybe you can give me a thumbs up to make sure we are all together. Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Grace. Victor, thank you. Thank you. So let's move to the next part. Now, here we are going to build a very simple evaluation. We are going to run a very simple evaluation to measure, to test the correctness of an agent. So first thing first, you must have a data set or a data set that you want to evaluate your application against. Very important. You can't run an evaluator without a data set. You have to build a data set. And a data set, as I said, is a collection of examples. Welcome, Luis. It's a collection of examples that we want to use to evaluate our applications. So, and the examples are made up of two things: the input and the output. Why? I think for every application that you are going to build, you expect that the user will key in some input, and the user expects some output. For any application that you are going to build, you expect the users to key in some inputs and get back some output. So when creating the data set, you are trying to mimic, think of it like there's already some users who are interacting with the system. One user entered the sorry for that. I think Edwin, can you mute? Thank you. So let's assume user A had a question and they got this answer. Then another user, they got this answer. So the data set is a pair of the test input and the output that is trying to mimic the real world or how the app should work. Maybe the workflow can have so many steps, but given a certain input, this is what we expect as the output. So here's a dataset example. So we have an input question. So before I dive into this, I think I'm going to show you an agent. So just to make sure we are all together, I did a very small agent, the one we did the first lesson actually. It's a single node. It accepts a user question. So you can see from this part here, I have two state variables. I have a question and an answer. So the user will send a question to our agent. Then the agent is going to take that user input and process it. You can see I'm invoking my LLM. I've initialized my LLM. I'm using GPT-4 Omni, temperature 0. After getting the response from the LLM, I'm updating my state with the response from the LLM. Okay, so let me so in case you have any question, you can ask. present my screen. So so this is the agent. I can give it an input. Let's say, for example, what is the capital city of Kenya? Okay, see, it has responded. So we want to evaluate this agent to make sure, given such kind of questions, the agent is performing as we expect. So I can now close this. So I have created my data set. So I have a set of inputs and outputs. So for the inputs, I have a question, and that's the question. Then for the output, I have an answer. This is what should come from the LLM. So I have a couple of examples. Then now I want to create the data set in LangSmith. So to create the dataset in LangSmith, you can either use the UI, you can interact with the UI, or you can do it programmatically. So currently, I'm just working with it programmatically. So I'm creating the dataset name, checking if the dataset already exists. If it does not exist, I create the new dataset with that dataset name, then give it a short description. Then after creating the data set, now I want to add my examples. So I pass in the dataset ID, and for the examples, I pass the dataset examples. Let me switch to LangSmith so that we are able to see this in action. I think I should window. So I'm back in LangSmith. So I'm going to access the dataset, dataset and experiments tab. Let me maybe I can create a new dataset, call it agent evaluation live. Then I will run the. So you guys will not be able to see the notebook running, but I think it's somewhere you can see it. So let me sort by date created. You can see this is the data set. I've created the data set, and let me run the examples. Then perfect. No examples yet. Let me to that. Try it again. Yeah, now this has worked. So I've created the data set, data set, and added the examples. So from here you can see these are the set of inputs that I have find on the notebook from my data set. So this is the input, this is the reference output. So if a user gives our agent these types type of question, we expect that our agent should respond with, let me change this to alert theme. We expect our agent to respond that the capital city of Kenya is Nairobi. What is the square root of 144? We expect the answer to be the square root of 144 is 12. So one thing with the reference output is that it can, after running the evaluation, we are going to notice that either it can have more characters or more words, or it can be more descriptive more than what our data set have. So, and that's where now the evaluator functions comes in, where you're going to check for the semantic meaning. Does what the agent respond with, or the response of the agent and the reference output, like have some, like, is it correct? That is one. Then we can define another evaluator, maybe to check the conciseness, just to make sure that the agent is not giving a very long description. So that's the evaluator we can add. So let me stop presenting, go back to my VS, my code. So we have defined our data set, added the dataset on LangSmith programmatically. You can do this manually on the UI as well. Now we are going to define the target function. What are we trying to evaluate? So in our case, we are going to evaluate the entire agent, but in some cases, you may want to only evaluate a given node. So for this, you can see from this, I'm importing my agent from src agent import graph. So src agent, I have my graph. So that is what I'm importing. Then I invoke the agent and pass the input. So the input that we are going to pass here is the inputs that we have defined in our data set. Then once we invoke the agent or the graph, we expect to get an answer back from what we have in our state. So that's all for the target function. So you can have multiple target functions as well based on what you are trying to evaluate. So I think that's clear. Then now we are going to define the evaluator. The evaluator are function that's called how well your application performs on a particular examples. So let's say, for example, in our case, we want to evaluate the correctness. Is the answer that the agent give us correct based on our golden data set? So we are going to define. So I think there's a framework called Open Evals, where they have already defined some of these evaluators, but you can also do your custom evaluators like I have done here. You just create a class like a structured output, like you define an LLM with structured output. So for example, in this case, I want the LLM to give an explanation of the reasoning and give an answer whether is what our agent responding with correct or not. Then I have my prompt. You are a teacher grading a quiz. You will be given a question. So the question that we are going to invoke our agent with, the ground truth. So that is the ground truth from our golden data set. Then and a student answer. So a student answer is, in this case, is the answer that the target function is going to respond with. So here is the grade criteria to follow. Grade the student answer based only on the factual accuracy relative to the ground truth. Ensure that the answer does not contain any conflicting statement. if it is okay, it is okay if the student answer contains some more information than the ground truth, as long as the factual actually accurate is blah blah blah, hizo vitu zingine. So correctness, a correctness value of true means that the student answer meets all the criteria. A correctness value of false means that the student answer does not meet all the criteria. Then you force the LLM to give a reason and the step-by-step reasoning behind the answer. So I have initialized by my model. Then now you'll notice that here I'm using GPT-4, but with my agent I'm using GPT-4 Omni. So this is what you maybe you can do something different, but just to test the performance, you can use a bigger model or a more intelligent model to evaluate a smaller model, like just to make sure, like like just the prompt is trying to say we have like the teacher and the student. So the bigger LLM becomes the teacher, the smaller one becomes the student. You can just think of it in that angle. So then we have the correctness function. I'm going to pass the answer. So the question, so the correctness, so our evaluator in this case, if we go back to this image, the evaluator is going to accept the input, the output from our application, and the reference output. So, and if I come back to this function, you can see that the correctness function is accepting a input dictionary. We have the output dictionary and the reference output dictionary. So the output is what the target function is going to return. Then the reference output is what we have in our golden data set. Then the input is the input that we have in our golden data set. Then we are going to pass that to the grader LLM. Then it is going to return an answer, whether true or false. And if you notice, the explanation on the reasoning, like the way you also pass these variables. For example, I'm starting with the explanation and not the Boolean one. This will force the model to think fast before giving this answer. So this ensures that like the performance or the way the LLM is performing as or reasoning as well is like you're forcing the LLM first to reason before giving a true or false answer. So yeah, then so that's our correctness function. Then now we want now to run our evaluator. Now to run our evaluator, LangSmith, you can see that our client, we defined our client here from LangSmith. So LangSmith already provides this evaluate method. So you just you just change. Is it changing or I don't know. You just call this method or yeah, you just call this method from the client, then pass the target function, pass our data set, what we want to evaluate our agent against, then pass the evaluators. So you can have multiple evaluators. So in our case, we only have one. We are just evaluating them, the correctness of them of the answers. But now you can add more, for example, conciseness, ground truth, or your custom evaluators. Then the LangSmith is going to run all the evaluators and give you the output. Then you can give the aberration a prefix for easy tracking. Then after you run the evaluation, you are going to get a link to LangSmith, where you can now be able to view what has happened behind the scenes and know if your agent or your application is performing as intended, or maybe changing the configuration, the prompts, and the style of the base model affect how changing those variables affected your your end like your application. So let me run the entire notebook again. So we have, so let's see, we're going to get a URL to the LangSmith evaluation. Then we're going to now shift to that UI and see how you can now be able to see or to have an overview of what has happened. So currently it is running all the inputs, all the examples in our data set, the evaluator and the target function, trying to pass the inputs to the target function and running the evaluator to see, like now evaluating the outputs that the target function returned. So let me go to this. Let me stop sharing and share the here we go. So here's the evaluation. Like these are the runs. So you can see for the first one, I think the first one should be this one. Yeah. What is the capital city of Kenya? So our reference output, this is what we have on our golden data set. This is what we expect the agent to respond with. The capital city of Kenya is Nairobi. So this is the actual output after the evaluator, after running the evaluator. So this is what the target function returned. The capital city of Kenya is Nairobi. So that's almost like that. The correctness has passed. That is one. So let me click on the difference so that we are able to see what is the difference between the reference output and the actual output, and why is it correct. So for the second one, who wrote the planet? Huh? Oh, who wrote the play Romeo and Juliet? The play Romeo and Juliet was written by William S. Shakespeare. That is what we have in our golden dataset. But what did we get after running the evaluation? The answer was the play Romeo and Juliet was written by William Shakespeare. It was one of the most famous work and was likely written in the early 1590s. So now you see in this case, we are getting the output from the agent, but it has some additional information, but the answer is correct. But because in our case we are just evaluating the correctness, is what the giving the agent some different inputs. Will it respond like with the correct answer? That is what we are trying to evaluate. And in our case, yes, that is correct. Then for the next question, this is the reference output. Then we get an answer. So you can add another evaluator, maybe to now check the conciseness, just to make sure that the agent is not responding with like a long paragraph, or maybe and maybe update the system prompt. So yeah, that's it for today. I think I'm done. Another thing, you can also view the traces. For example, this one, you can just click on expand trace, and you will LangSmith already provide that capability for you. You can be able to see what was the input, like let's say for example this one. You can be able to see the tokens, the success, what, the system prompt, you are a helper, whatever. This was the input and this was the, like you can now be able to track that, the trace as well. So that's it for today's session. At this point, I would like to invite any question in case you have a query, and in case you feel okay. Jimmy, there's a, I can say Jimmy. Yes, you can go ahead. Just unmute and hello, Jimmy Mudhani. You can just ask your question. We can't hear you. I can see your mic is on, but I can't hear you. Hello. I think your there's an issue with the either, I don't know, your network, your mic, or you can just type the question on the chat. Okay, Grace. James, what did you say if you have two or more target inputs on the evaluation? So, what did you say if you have two or more target? So, let me stop presenting and present the notebook again. So, if you have two or more inputs, you're just going to pass them all, on this dictionary. Let's say, for example, you have the first input that your agent should accept from the user is a question, and maybe another variable. For example, question and what? Maybe a link or something. This can be anything. You just define your data set with that, with those inputs, the target inputs. Then once you do this, the changes is going to cascade to all other. So when creating the data set, of course, we are going to create the data set with those two kinds of inputs. Where when the target function, you're going to invoke the agent or your workflow with the two inputs. Then with the evaluator, you are going to access, for example, for the input, I'm just accessing the question, but now maybe I can question and maybe a link. You get? I don't know whether I have one question. Grace? Hello? Okay, if Grace, you have another question, just post it on the chat. Jimmy, my question is that we have a multi-agent application that has a supervisor and other agent. Is it possible to evaluate the output of every agent? In this case, the brain behind the agent is different. And yeah. So when you are starting, we say that the target function, the target function defines the part of your application that you want to evaluate. It can be the entire application. So when running a multi-agent architecture, you may only want to evaluate the input and the final output. That is one. You may only want to evaluate a part of your application, which can be the supervisor. You want to see how the supervisor is making the decision. You can only evaluate that specific part. You can also evaluate the different agent, the sub agent, or the agent, the child, are they called the child agent, that are communicating with the supervisor. You can also, let's say for example, you have a research agent, you have something like that. You can also target those specific part or those specific agents and have evaluation for them. But now in that case, you are going to have different databases or datasets. And that's where now LangSmith shines, because you can pass, like for example, this experiment prefix. And when creating a data set, there are some things that are called sprints. So sprints help you now create the different data sets to test different parts of your application, or to target different parts of the application. So the answer is yes, you can evaluate a multi-agent architecture, but it's a bit more complex. But I think we can have a session on that as well. So if I have answered your question, Jimmy, just give me a thumbs up. If you are not satisfied, you can just unmute and okay, perfect. For Grace, if I answered the question, kindly gives me a thumbs up. If you like more clarification, just drop a comment on the chat section. Anyone else with a question, or maybe an input, or anything? You can just unmute and say something. Hello. So in case, okay, I can see Nancy. There's a question from Nancy. Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, it's not really a question, but more of an input.
Okay.
So using the evaluators, I don't know if you've discussed the other way of using the inbuilt processes, that is where you can use LLM as a judge, because I've seen you've covered mostly the code part of it, how to discuss only, but then for me, I've done it, but then I usually use, like the way he has asked about the multi-agent application with the supervisor and other aids, I usually use the traceable. You add it as a decorator for every function or sub agent that you want to track, and then after that you can add. We have the part where in the dashboard, or rather the ribbon, you can add in LangSmith itself. You can add the evaluators and then use LLM as a judge. So it gives you the list of evaluators. That is, you can track for hallucination, correctness, or even you can add yourself any other, and then it tracks. Using the traces, it can be able to evaluate and also give recommendations for the same according to it. So which one is better to use? Is it the one that you've shown us, or you can also do the other one using the, I'd say, inbuilt kind of options, and also get similar results with the same.
Okay, perfect. For thank you very much, Nancy, for that input. And what I have covered here, actually, I'm using an LLM as a judge, because I'm using the LLM to judge the question, the ground truth, and the student, or the output. So this is an LLM as a judge, but for me, I'm doing it programmatically. Like, I'm defining my own prompt of how I want my evaluation to happen. That is one. And when I don't know, but I mentioned about this. There's another package called Open Evals, where LangChain, they have already defined the inbuilt evaluators, like the LLM as a judge. I don't know, kuna zingine hapo, but I don't remember. You can also use them, those as well. But if you want your custom evaluators, I think you can go for this path. If you don't want a custom evaluator, you can use whatever LangChain already provides. Perfect. Thank you. Any other query? You mentioned we were live on YouTube last session. Could you share? So something happened. I don't know. Yes, we were live on YouTube, but we live streamed the entire session, but the screen was just black. I don't know what happened, but I think we can. We're going to plan with Amos to record another, just a tiny session, just on how to build an MCP, upload it on YouTube, so you guys are able to see how to build the MCP. But yeah. And maybe Nancy, maybe we can have a session and show us how to, because I know there are those like the oh, hata nimeziona. So let me share my screen. I've not used the I do custom. I don't use the inbuilt, but from this copy me, yeah. So you can see add evaluator. You can, let's say for example, I think we can even do just a small demo and see whether this will work. Maybe Nancy, you can help. Okay. So go back, add evaluator. So currently, you will notice that here I have correctness only. So I want conciseness. You can see they're defining the evaluator name. They have the prompt, what we have defined on our end. Then they're passing the input. Let's see. Let me see even. Oh, I need to provide the OpenAI key. Let's see whether it's going to work. Save. So Nancy, what happens after adding the?
So you can be able to sorry, another meeting. You can be able to for the prompt part of it, actually you can create your own if you want to. You can provide with your own, and then also make sure that the inputs and the outputs are present. And also when you go down there, there's the feedback configuration. Yes, you can also define how you want that, if it's from 0 to here. Yeah, all that is correct. And now there's also when you save.
Whether they are stock or
Just a minute.
Yeah. The same one.
I don't sijui he add kwangu, but you see you can also add your custom evaluator here. You don't have to do the coding. You can just create a custom and add your Python code and the evaluator name, then you run. Sijui mbona hii, but maybe we can have another session where we can deep dive on LangSmith and using the built-in evaluators. Yeah. So any other question? Okay. Still okay. Perfect. I think we are going to have a discussion on that on the LangChain, like the community website channel, or you can just text on WhatsApp. I have the repos open source, so I think you can start working on it. For example, there's an agent actually I worked on, and the main aim was to do like, the RAG agent to answer any question about the sessions that we have done, any upcoming session, the speakers, and all that. So yeah, I'll also share that that repo as well. So I can see the time is over. So at this point, I'm going to invite. So in case you have any other question, you can just reach out on the WhatsApp community. I'm going to invite Amos just to say something, then we can end the call.
Hello guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so it's been a wonderful session about learning about evaluation using LangSmith. I'll have to redo it myself to grasp everything appropriately. But for now, I do not have much to say. So back to you, James.
Okay, thank you, Amos. So we run two communities with Amos. There is the AI Labs Kenya and the LangChain Community Kenya. So that's why we get to discuss more about any upcoming session. In case you have a query, you can just post it, and maybe we can just collaborate. And so I'm going to share the link to the LangChain community, and Amos is going to share the link to AI Labs Kenya. So if you are not in one of those communities, you can just join. In case you have a query, feel free to post. In case you have a project you are working on, you can share. Yeah. Copy. And also the we are running just to get to understand what would you like us to cover, what part, or do you feel that maybe you need more clarification on? Yeah. So I'm also going to share the link. Just a minute. So that is the survey. I've shared the link to the survey. You can just fill what you think maybe we need to work on, anything. Then I think we're going to interact more from after getting the feedback. So yeah, thank you. Is there anyone who would like to say something before we close the call? If no one, thank you again, guys, for joining, and let's meet next time. So have a good end and cheers.